That was Astrophysics Ain't Heavy Man. And you can see the next lecture at the same time next week. You can also watch Professor Ryan Socks again on Monday night at 8:30 over on VBC One, where he presents his new popular science programme, Space is Bigger Than You Could Dream Of. Now, let's join Vixbridge University for the Autist Whisperer.
Nothing but the truth. In Chapter 2, which covered literal communication, we posed the following question. How often do you think you don't tell the truth? Never? Occasionally? Or every day? However you answer that question, somebody who uses language more or less literally than yourself, or has a different cultural understanding, might not have the same view of how truthful you are. We've talked about how neurotypical communication uses many different modifiers, both verbal and non-verbal, to enhance or to alter the meaning of the words we use. Our understanding of the use of those modifiers can influence our perceptions of another's honesty. Equally, if we expect the use of such tools, we can interpret their absence as communication too, which can have equal impact on our perceptions. Honesty isn't just a question of not telling lies. Dishonesty can include omissions of information, misdirection, obfuscation, and leaving statements open to interpretation. It's possible to say truthful words and still be dishonest by shaping those words with sarcasm, pessimism, and non-verbal language. Whilst it isn't true that autists cannot lie, most autists demonstrate a tendency to be honest and candid at all times, and some find concealing the truth difficult. It is more likely for an autist to give you more information than you need than to hide or lie about it. Chapter 1 talked about eye contact and how that can skew perceptions of honesty and reliability. The response in Western cultures is to be wary of people who avoid eye contact, which explains why so many autistic people are routinely distrusted. Autists, however, must rely more on the content of what is being said, since eye contact may be uncomfortable or distracting. Perceptions of truth can be altered by our interpretation of language. How we phrase things can make a huge difference depending on the viewpoint of the audience. It's not unusual for a neurotypical person to qualify a statement with a phrase like, "You know what I mean," or "You get my drift?" They mean that their words should be taken within a context the listener is expected to understand. This will often be lost on an autistic listener, who's left with the option of asking for elaboration or taking their words at face value. To the autist who finds themselves in the wrong over and over about what people are saying because they respond to the words rather than their modified or hidden meaning, it can have profound implications for their trust of others. It can feel like all around people are lying or distorting the truth. The NT person is not consciously lying when they describe their surprise as nearly having a heart attack. They're using a figure of speech they expect everyone to understand. Anyone who interprets it as an implication that they have an underlying heart condition which they later find out they don't have may feel like they've been misled. On the other hand, an autist who says that a shock nearly gave them a heart attack may actually be telling the literal truth. They may have suffered palpitations, chest pains or shortness of breath which scared them and could in fact require medical attention. If their attempt to inform someone of their condition is brushed off as a figure of speech without checking, it could have dangerous consequences. Even subtle alterations to words, their order in a sentence, or a simple omission can completely change their meaning when interpreted literally, which in turn affects the perception of the honesty of the statement. I had some ice cream. I had a sore throat. Could mean you ate the ice cream to soothe the sore throat, or that the ice cream caused the sore throat. We may get the meaning across using inflection, tone of voice, or a gesture. But when written down or falling on autistic ears, the meaning can be ambiguous. The addition of the word because would help, but even then, where it was placed in the sentence would determine the implied meaning. For an autist who doesn't pick up the extra layers of communication, they are unable to make sense of the sentence without clarification. The English language holds immense room for interpretation within its grammar. You might imagine it to be simpler in languages like French or German, which have a more rigid grammatical structure. But the presence of politicians and con men in every culture shows that the same techniques can be used to deceive in any language. When autistics and neurotypicals communicate, matching their expectations of honesty is extremely important. Both sides are likely to feel that they are lacking necessary detail. The autist may feel that the NT leaves out information or makes imprecise statements that leave their meaning uncertain. The neurotypical might believe that the lack of eye contact and the highly precise detail the autist uses might betray an attempt at deception. More than likely, neither is correct. They are judging the exchange by their own expectations. Those expectations can be so far apart, it would be unrealistic to ask either side to alter their communication to match the other. It's feasible for both to be tolerant of their different styles and to make their communication more effective by making small changes, though. What we'd like you to take away from Chapter 3 is that both autists and allistics need to exercise caution in making judgments about each other's honesty based on their native communication styles. Neurotypicals frequently don't provide the detail the autist needs, so shouldn't be surprised if they receive a number of questions about points they thought were already clear. They might also benefit from making their questions very precise, so minimising the autistic need to explain the background of their answers. People on the spectrum may find the use of idiom, cultural references and filler phrases confusing or frustrating, but will help communication flow smoothly by understanding they have a place in the social flow. Asking for clarification may be necessary, and if the NT in the room is understanding of that need, they'll be warmly received and answered. Not going into as much detail about the background of a topic may help ease the process too. Minor details that have little impact on the subject at hand might be okay to leave out rather than risk boring them or giving the appearance of obfuscation. The allistic party can always ask questions too if they don't understand part of the chain of causes and effects. Above all, it helps for both sides to give the other the benefit of the doubt. There are people who deliberately deceive amongst autists and allistics alike, but most of the time we see deception, it's merely misunderstanding due to differences in communication styles. Remaining aware that those differences may resemble things we've learned to be signals of dishonesty must be at the front of any would-be Autist Whisperer's mind. The fourth chapter, about autistic and neurotypical expectations and standards of candour, will be available soon. Thank you very much for watching the third chapter of the Autist Whisperer.